One more question, and way in the back.
If it does end badly and Koresh starts shooting on Tuesday, and then he starts using the children physically as shields by, say, holding up the window as it's done in the past, what's your response to that? How are you going to get around that?
The question is, if things go badly and he starts shooting on Tuesday, which I guess is Passover, I think this is Friday, I'm not really sure anymore, what will our response be? Our response will always be a measured response. We are not going to fire on children held up as shields. However, we have the ability to protect ourselves, and we have the ability to take action if necessary. We'll return fire if we're fired on, if we have a clear shot. Yes, that's very clear. We'll do that, but we're not going to fire on children. Thank you all very much.
I don't have any opening statement. I'm open for your questions. Yes, sir?
Yeah, my question is this. You've been telling us for several days that the ATF, that you were absolutely certain that the ATF had no advance knowledge that Koresh had in fact been tipped. Now yesterday you're telling the Washington Post that, quite frankly, someone may decide that we did lose the element of surprise and knew it. You also said we felt that there wasn't compelling evidence that there wasn't compelling evidence that Koresh knew this. That sounds like quite a change in tone to me, and I just wonder, is that a contradiction? Sounds like something quite different.
I don't see that as a contradiction. No, your question is that we have been stating for some time now that we didn't feel we had any situation where our tactical plan was not a viable one at the time we executed the raid, and we're still taking that position. In fact, that goes back to this issue of statements made by persons involved in the raid and anonymous sources contacting the media stating that certain people said certain things. Let me comment on that, and perhaps we can clear that issue up. We know what Vernon Howell said to our undercover agent in the compound on the morning of February 28th. We are aware of those statements. We know what he said. We also know exactly what our undercover agent reported to the tactical commanders when he left the compound. We also are aware of what statements were said by our tactical commander at the staging area prior to the raid being executed. We, however, do not think it's appropriate to characterize those statements, any of those statements, nor be specific about them, for the very simple reason that all of the facts are not in this situation. The investigation is still open, and in fact, the Treasury Department will initiate an independent oversight of this entire affair once the siege situation is concluded. And for that reason, we do not believe it's in anybody's interest or fair to any person involved in this entire incident to go into specific statements made by any of those parties. I will, however, tell you that we are in a situation where we know that there were no plans being made inside the compound visible to our undercover agent that morning that indicated that they were mounting any type of a battle plan or an armed response. He saw no firearms exhibited by anyone. There was no posting of any sentries, no activities consistent with someone getting ready to forcibly ambush anybody who came to the compound. And in addition to that, prior to our raid teams arriving on the scene, after our undercover agent left the compound, we had a complete observation of the outside of that entire compound from the undercover location down at the end of the road. There was no activity by anyone outside the compound during that time frame and until the raid team arrived to indicate that there was anything going on, to indicate that they were gearing up for any type of a hostile response or doing anything, quite frankly, out of the ordinary as we had observed for some time. Now that's the bottom line on that. Yes, sir.
But did the undercover agent, did he report back that Koresh was agitated, that something strange was going on, as this story says? Or did the undercover agent come back and say everything's absolutely normal and report nothing about the phone call? Your story saying that he came out agitated, and the undercover agent came out and told his supervisors that there was some problem, but that they weren't arming themselves apparently. And that's quite a different story from what you've been telling us in the past, which is that the undercover agent said all was clear and no indication at all of a tip-off, and let's go ahead with the raid.
The question is, didn't the undercover agent come out and make statements reference the condition or actions or statements involving Mr. Howell and how he was responding? And I will have to go back to what I just said. We are not going to characterize or specifically remark as to what anybody said from that point down through our report, the undercover agent's report to the tactical commanders, nor their conversations with the agents prior to the raid, because it's unfair to all of them. The facts are not in, the investigation is not complete, and I think it would be a real poor move on anybody's part to characterize or be specific about what exactly was said. Let it rest that we know exactly who said what to whom, and we are confident that we know the facts on who said what to whom, but we are going to let the investigation run its course before that information is made part of the public record. Yes, sir.
Question about, you mentioned your undercover agent left the compound, and from your undercover position you could observe nothing out of the ordinary happening outside the compound before your raiding party went in. What was the time frame there between the time he left and the time they actually arrived? How much time are we talking about?
The question is, how much time elapsed between the time that our undercover agent departed the compound that morning and the raid teams actually arrived on the scene? And the answer to that question is approximately 40 minutes, perhaps a few less than that transpired between that time. And as you mentioned in your question, we did have a complete observation of the entire front and side of that compound from our undercover house location, and there was no activity that was out of the ordinary during that entire time frame. Follow-up?
As a follow-up, yeah. But from what I've seen of those videotapes that were shot by the CBS station here, it appears that that a lot of the gunfire was coming like from within, way inside the building. So they could have been arming themselves and making preparations inside the buildings, obviously. Did you have any way to know that? Any way to sense that there was something untoward going on inside those buildings or behind the buildings?
Question is that based on the videotape shot by the news station, it indicated that much of the fire initially came from inside the compound, through the walls, through the windows, that type of thing. And did we have any way to know that obviously something was going on inside the building? And the answer to that is no. Once our undercover agent exited the compound, we had no way to know what was happening inside the compound. We only had a visual observation of the compound structure and the outside area, and there was no activity that was out of the ordinary on any other day that we had observed the compound from the outside. Yes, sir.